Welcome to the Tech Couples podcast. I'm your go-to web developer, Andy, and this is my beautiful wife,
Sabrina, the vibe positive shooter. Pew, pew.
We started this podcast to help you run your website better, faster, and smarter. And this week's topic is
discussing if trade shows are a good way to showcase my product and service.
Yeah. So let's start with an interesting fact. According to one poll, 77% of trade show attendees have some purchasing authority within their organization. That means that when you go to these trade shows, conferences, markets, expos, suddenly you might expose yourself to the business owner, the person who is, they say the gatekeeper within an organization that can make a purchase for your product or service, right? So I think we have a lot of experience with trade shows. I think we've been to, how many have we been to?
Oh, can't even tell you, a handful of them. I mean, it's like the trade show carnival we've been to. We've been to so many. I loved it. It's always fun, the communication that you get with others, the conversations, the connections.
Yeah, the grind.
The grind that, I mean, you need a day or two off after a foot massage. I'll tell you that one from long days. But definitely it's got its positivities that come with it as well, too.
Yeah. Trade shows have been popular for years now, especially in some industries where, meeting people face to face is quite important, right?
For sure. So, then you get to see their demeanor, their stance, the way they look at you, communication, how they're receiving your product or your service, if the way that you're speaking or your marketing or your branding is right, or if you're needing to alter those things as well, too.
Yeah. Let's start with some major benefits of trade shows.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, meeting connections. You meet new people. Like you said, you get to see their face when you're demoing your product and you're talking about your service. And then, sometimes you get pushback, right?
For sure. That great feedback is amazing, though. You just have to be able to swallow your pride at some points and make sure that you're taking that feedback in as well.
Yeah. And you definitely do get to make a lot of connections at trade shows, right?
Yeah, for sure. Whether it's B2B, whether it's to your consumer, making sure that you're getting those connections with people. I mean, even today, we have some longtime life friends that we met over 7-8 years ago from doing all these trade shows that have guided us in avenues of their business, even though they're in different businesses than us. Thought feedback and positivity to each other. So definitely helping each other grow their businesses in different ways.
Yeah. So our business, we're much more B2B. We do business services for other businesses, right? And then, one thing for me that I thought was really important was when I went to the trade show was to quickly identify who was an employee and who was actually a business decision maker. So, sometimes you would be at that trade show, you're walking through, and if you see, hey, there's that youngish girl, she's on her phone, sitting in the back of her booth. She probably isn't a decision maker at the company, right? She's probably there being paid, $20 an hour or something like that. She's not going to be interested in your product unless it's an end consumer product like a bath bomb or something like that, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, for me, after doing lots of research in these trade shows, you want to be standing front. You actually don't want to ever have chairs. You don't ever want to be behind the booth. You want to be at equal balance or even in front of it, making sure that you're face to face with your consumers or your potential connections that you'll be meeting.
Right. I think we both worked fast food before.
Yeah.
And, thing about when you work fast food, those people do not let you sit unless you're on your break. Right. And, so I think that's definitely an issue of some trade show. The people who run some trade shows is, hey, they'll get a booth. They'll have 2 chairs back then and they're both sitting down there. You do want your employees standing because when people are just sitting there, it's very easy. It's very easy to walk past a booth. Right?
For sure. I mean, I've walked past booths so many times because they look relaxed. They look comfortable. They also don't really look interested in a conversation with you. So you walk right past them. So making sure whether you are the worker, whether you are the owner, whether you are helping somebody set up their booth, making sure that you are looking at the big picture of a trade show, what it can bring to you, the positivities, making sure that you are aware of those hard moments to make sure. Also having the right people at your trade shows, making sure that they are being able to communicate correctly, flowing well, that they're not. I mean, yeah, we understand people can be socially awkward at points, but this is a front facing what you do. So knowing that the people at your trade shows are the right people for your company.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I want to move on to definitely some challenges of some trade shows. Number one challenge, cost, right?
Yes, cost, the traveling costs from whether you fly, whether you have to rent a vehicle because you have more equipment than would fit in your normal vehicle, hotel costs, flying booth fees, even eating. I remember a time when we were there, we went to a cereal booth. They had over 20 cereals. I think it was like $20 a bowl. So making sure you bring your lunch is an important thing as well, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And anytime you're at a conference or a trade show, suddenly when you're in there, there's not many food options, and any food options there are quite expensive. So,
Yeah.
the cost adds up, right? You're talking about Airbnb, you're talking about Ubers or taxis every single way, even renting a car, everything, it all adds up, right?
For sure.
Yeah. And also, it can be very time consuming when you do a trade show, right? And that's time is the one resource we can't get back. When you are at the trade show, obviously, the time when you're there can be a day, 2 days, a weekend. Beyond that, there's also the day before. The day before oftentimes is traveling time. It's also setting up your booth, right?
Yeah, that
Setting up.
takes a lot of time to, but again, if you want to flash a big booth, you've got to put all these together. The hurdles of us trying to set it all up,
Mhm,
take it all down, make sure it's folded correctly.
mhm.
Oh, those were some late nights there, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, if you can get a booth, try your best to get a booth where you can pop it up easily and take it down easily. Right?
Yes, for sure. I mean, later on, I'll leave a comment in the link in the bottom for you guys from some amazing trade show booths that we've worked with.
Yeah. Yeah. And, beyond that, probably another major challenge, and a little bit hard to assess until you're there, but it's to making sure you're at the right trade show for you.
Yes. I mean, making sure you do your research beforehand. Look at potentially that trade shows happen multiple years in a row, making sure, are you a B2B? Are you a consumer? Are you looking for the public? What are you looking for your product or service? So doing the research among that, potentially, even if you're thinking about, hey, I want to grow my business, I'm looking at this, try to go to a few that are similar, get the vibe, walk around, talk to people, see what other people's vibes are at other trade shows, and then see if this is the right avenue for your company and business.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's hard to know if that trade show is for you until you're there, right? And then,
Definitely, for sure. That
yeah,
I agree with that too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then by then you have already sunken in everything, from the booth cost to the travel. You're already there. One example I can give you is I have a friend who owns a tutor company,
Mm.
right? So with the tutor company, he thought, all right, my target market is women and men who have kids. So he got a nice expensive booth. It was at a new mothers trade show and conference, right? So he thought that, hey, I'm at this trade show. There's a lot of new mothers coming on. It's like a pregnancy show. Yeah, I'm going to get lots of leads for my tutor company, right? Everyone's going to be wanting tutor services. And then he said it was the entire weekend was a waste, complete waste. And he got virtually no leads from this being there for an entire weekend. And he said the reason why was, even though this conference was geared towards moms, his service was for, let's say kids that were at least 6 years old now, that you can actually start to do some
Mhm.
tutoring services. But at this conference was all expecting mothers. So, it was mostly first time mothers that weren't at the right age yet to actually need a tutor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a new mom myself, right? So I completely can relate to that. I mean, when I'm at these trade shows, I'm looking for items for the next 6 to 8 months, even a year to 2 years. I'm looking at knowledge to guide me in things. I mean, so I could see his point in that, but I'm more than certain that he's probably learned his lesson. Again, which happens. So you learn and you grow. So even if you decide to go into trade shows, at least you took some positivity out of it. You learned how to speak to individuals. You learned how to be able to hold your booth, to be able to put it together. You be able to show yourself how the trade shows work, how people are communicating. So you don't just take all the negative out of it. You've got to pull some positive, and you're learning and growing from all of this as well at the same time too.
Yeah, no, for sure. After you do a few trade shows, you'll be surprised at how quickly you craft your elevator pitch, right? Because sometimes you've got 30 seconds before that customer walks by because, they're bored of listening to you, right? You might only have 30 seconds to sell them on your product or service. So you definitely get a lot of practice crafting your elevator pitch, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some positivities that came from that. I mean, in the beginning, when you first start off, most trade shows, you're not going to get, hey, look, I'm just going to go into this trade show. I'm going to walk away with so and so amount of money in business. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to learn how to grow. You're going to have to learn how to speak to people. You're going to have to see what niche is meant for you. Maybe you went into a niche that you thought this or that. For example, your friend, he went into a market he thought he would. It would have worked out. It didn't in this case, but now he knows which markets might work for him better. And after that, all it is a learning curve. You're growing, you're starting your business off. So this does come with positivities in all of this experience as well, too.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to end this with just giving up a couple last tips. If you are thinking about attending a trade show and having a booth, number one, make sure your booth pops.
Yes, the more eye-catchy, the better.
Right, yeah. And if it's if it's not a super fancy design, sometimes it's a freebie, right? If you just have a
We
small
love
thing,
the freebies.
yeah, small thing, $25 Starbucks gift card, enter your name for a draw. Suddenly, there's a lot of people interested in your booth, right?
Yeah, and then there you go. You can also potentially connect with those people, get their phone numbers, reach out to them. Hey, and another positive tip, try your very best to remember stories when people are communicating to you. Little trick and tip I always had right after I spoke with someone that I felt that this could be a good connection. I went right onto my phone, onto a notepad, took a quick note about that individual. So when I reached back out to them, they felt, hey, that person is relatable. That person did remember me. Yes, you're seeing hundreds, potentially thousands, but trying to remember those connections really does help you for the long point as well. So it's another good tip there too.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've done enough trade shows that I definitely, you might realize this after a while, but I would recommend having at least two pockets, right? Because you'll be getting hundreds, possibly hundreds of business cards.
Yeah.
You want one pile of business cards where, hey, you know what? I might actually call these people back. And then another pile where, maybe this service isn't actually for me. I don't have a house, so I don't need your roofing services,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, okay, yeah, thanks for the pitch, but I don't need a new roof. Whereas in the other pile, hey, maybe I do need, printing service, right? So, you'll have that pile. And what I do recommend, and it's like what you just said is, hey, you just got a card, this printing service makes sense for you. You want to call them back. Definitely write it on your phone, right? Or your notepad, this guy, Bob, write it down. I just spoke to him. The printing makes sense because what you'll end up is at the end of the weekend, you'll have so many cards. You'll have dozens and dozens of cards that you are interested in, but you don't remember who's who.
Yep.
Right?
And you could reach back out to them and then you say, huh, who is that? Sorry, we spoke when? So knowing you have a small little snippet about them. Oh, they said they live in this city or something small. Oh, you remember me? Great communication and tip that way too.
Yeah. No. And if you meet a Bob at the event, suddenly you write on your phone, "Hey, Bob, he was a realtor," right?
Yep.
Suddenly that will help you jibe in your memory so much more on who Bob was, rather than just wait until Monday, look at that card of Bob, and you have no idea who Bob was.
Yeah.
Just little notes. Try to take notes. You don't have to take notes about everything, but just a couple of keywords, and suddenly you're off to the races, right?
Yes, for sure. So on that note, I just wanted to say trade shows can have a lot of benefits. Making sure you're doing your research, making sure that you're looking in the right avenues for your companies. Do you have any final comments or questions, Andy?
No, just make sure to have fun and don't skip the after parties, even though I know you're tired.
Yes, after parties have been amazing connections for us. So on that note, 247 WordPress Tech out.